This is a game with a very strange fate. So 2 years ago, Dark Dreams Don't Die released for the Xbox One. It was, and still is, a digital-only title. Although I covered why it was destined to be a commercial failure by no fault of the game's own in my review from 2 years ago, let's recap a little history, shall we? Back during Microsoft's E3 2013 press conference, Dark Dreams Don't Die was announced as a console exclusive for the Xbox One. They showed a trailer and told a thinly veiled lie about making a commitment to working with developers all around the world and subtly implying working with Japanese developers. Overall, D4 received 46 seconds of stage time. In that 46 seconds, the average gamer learned the following: Xbox One exclusive, episodic mystery, Kinect controls, no release date information, no real gameplay or insight into the story. There was no true elevator pitch going on at this conference. It was just a trailer and some shit happened, and then they walked away from it. And for the most part, that was the last bit of marketing this game ever received from Microsoft. Not only did Microsoft poorly present D4, but the only other Japanese developed game to have any presence at Microsoft's 2013 conference was Crimson Dragon, which, if you don't know, was the follow-up to the phenomenal Panzer Dragoon series. And my god, the team behind it got even worse exposure than D4 did.
Here's the premiere of Crimson Dragon, exclusively on Xbox One.
That was good.
After their 2013 press conference, there was next to no marketing from Microsoft regarding these two titles, followed by their sudden silent releases on the digital marketplace. Both D4 and Crimson Dragon were locked down to the Xbox One at launch. No physical copies of either games were ever produced, so they didn't have a store shelf presence for the general population to stumble upon and thereby fall in love with. What really chaps my ass about this situation is there was no in-depth explanation of how either game's mechanics were to have worked. I and many gamers were under the impression that these were Kinect-only games, which was not the case. Both of these games, in conjunction with Scalebound, Recore, and the ill-fated Phantom Dust reboot, represented the only exclusive Japanese-developed games on a console with a quickly diminishing exclusive library. So before I get too far into this, I'm gonna dial back my anger here for a little and compliment Microsoft here, more specifically the work of Phil Spencer and what lengths he went to save the console after the disastrous reputation Microsoft had with the gaming community after the launch with the always-on DRM digital-only announcements by Don Matrick.
Fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub.
Right.
And I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
That was one hell of a hole to dig yourself out of, and I do respect Microsoft for trying to turn things around a little bit, even though they're not 100% there with me personally. To Japanese game lovers out there like myself, Phil Spencer has and always will be our guy. It seems like at every opportunity, he's tried to get a little Japanese presence on the console, with the more recent news that he was leading the charge to bring Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon as backwards compatible titles on the Xbox Xbox One, with the former game being cited as one of his favorites of all time. Great taste, Phil. Phil seems to be an alright dude and pretty in touch when it comes to gaming markets, and he's acknowledged that Microsoft has failed in reaching the Japanese audience, specifically citing titles like Persona 5 and Neo being core titles that are big in Japan and absent from the Xbox One's library. What leaves me scratching my head is that him acknowledging that if they want to bring in that audience, they need more games in line with Japanese tastes. But then he goes on to say that Microsoft's working on reaching that market by forming working relationships with Japanese developers such as Hair-Gelled Conman and Japanese Phil Fish. Scalebound does look good, and I'm gonna pick it up when it comes out eventually in 2017 sometime. But let's be real, a Jak and Daxter inspired action platformer made by former developers of Metroid Prime is going to do very little to bring in a Japanese demographic. Microsoft didn't do enough to capture the Japanese market at launch, and they still aren't doing enough to make Japanese game lovers care in the present day. And with the forthcoming Xbox Scorpio in the works, it seems like a missed opportunity to repair their image with the Eastern market. If D4 Season 2 is ever going to happen, it's likely not going to be the Xbox One community that's going to resurrect the brand by itself. We're gonna need some extra help here. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, let's talk about D4's launch. D4 released on a seemingly random day in September of 2014, and I lost my damn mind because I wanted nothing more to play it and support the game in any way I could. At the time, I didn't own an Xbox One and I had no plans on getting one. But Swery65 is my main fucking man. I love this guy. The man created Deadly Premonition. What was I gonna do? My hand was forced. Hashtag do it for Swery. I sold off my sealed limited edition of Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth for the Vita for $350. I went down to the pawn shop, I traded my Weeb dollars for a burger machine, launched the marketplace, and bought D4 on launch day. Do I regret doing this? Yes. Yes, I do. Fuck. That sad little anecdote is in no way reflection of my enjoyment of D4, as I fell deeply in love with the little glimpse we were given into the episodic adventure. Although I've gone into greater detail about my feelings regarding D4 in my review, now that a couple years have passed and I've had some time to reflect, I still feel like there's a giant hole in my existence where D4 Season 2 should be, and I want that hole filled with D badly. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. This game had no chance at capturing an audience on the Xbox One given the poor marketing and digital-only release. It had nothing to do with the quality of the game or falling into the genre of mystery because people were eating that shit up at the time since Telltale's The Walking Dead was sweeping up so many Game of the Year awards. That's not to say D4 didn't receive its own accolades, because D4 was nominated for Destructoid's Best of E3 2014, Best Xbox exclusive at E3 in 2014, and was nominated at the Tokyo Game Show Awards in 2014 in the category of Best Xbox Game. Critics and players alike were starting to see the potential in this little game. For what it's worth, Dark Dreams Don't Die is a standout title in a genre that's becoming a licensed property festival wrapped around the illusion of choice. D4 looks, sounds, and plays better than any title in Telltale's anthology of games that are currently using the same engine from 2010. But I digress. D4 broke ground in this genre by injecting a little Shenmue into the point-and-click adventure mold. You can interact with nearly every object populated in the game world, stuff any random food you find into David's head, and slap the ass of most of the NPCs in the game. That's Game of the Year material in my book. Now say what you will about Microsoft's Kinect, because Microsoft sure isn't saying anything about it, but D4 was the first and only enjoyable experience I've ever had with the Kinect. Now if you're looking for some excuse to plug in your NSA home scanner and find a title that truly captures the potential and in some ways stands as a parody of gesture-based gameplay, then you owe it to yourself to play through D4 using the Kinect. At least do it once, it's kind of fun. Also, I'd recommend watching this video of Swery at GDC 2015, where he goes into greater detail about his philosophy of developing games for the Kinect. He shares one of the most interesting slideshows about the game making process I've ever seen, and he really does justify the Kinect's inclusion in the making of this game.
大事ですけども、ユーザーの失敗をマイナスに評価しない。失敗して怒られるのはみんな嫌なので、失敗した時もゲームは楽しくなるように作るべきです。
No one likes to get blamed for something that they did wrong in a game. So instead of having penalties, we're going to try to make them more fun.
D4 では失敗を面白おかしくすることで、失敗は分からせるんだけども嫌な気持ちにさせないように努力しました。
In D4, instead of having people understand that we didn't do the command properly, but instead of feeling like they are yelled at or blamed, we're trying to make it a little bit more fun.
It seemed as if Microsoft had all but abandoned continued development on Season 2 for the console. The last hope this series could ever wish for would be a launch on Windows platforms. So that's exactly what they did. Access Games reached out to Playism, who helped publish D4 on PC and thereby removed another exclusive title from the Xbox One console, but that's a good thing. Since D4 has been released to the world at large, it has been well received by a cold audience, much like its predecessor Deadly Premonition. Since the debut on PC, the title has been on multiple Steam and Humble Bundle sales, which probably makes logging into Twitter for Swery a little more miserable with the constant "Where's Season 2" tweets he must receive after each subsequent sale, but it would be hypocritical for me to make a video calling fault on people for expressing their want for closure to the series. The late to the party fans are not to blame here, and I'm 100% behind this passionate audience. I think it's time we got a little closure. So, where the fuck is Season 2, you might ask? Well, let's dig a little deeper and find out together. In November of 2015, Swery issued an announcement on Cafe Swery65, his personal blog, about going into a short hiatus from game development to focus on recovering from health issues related to hypoglycemia. Unfortunately, this is the last entry in the blog, but don't worry, he's still alive and he seems to have made a full recovery, which I'm sure everyone's happy to hear, myself included. Personally, I know someone close to me who has hypoglycemia, and it can be a physically draining experience. The disease comes with a whole slew of symptoms, and it can be debilitating or in some cases nearly fatal. I want to make mention that I'm in no way a medical professional, I'm not Swery's doctor, and I certainly love this dude and his work from the bottom of my heart, but he kinda needs to chill with the hashtag drinking. I don't know for a fact if his drinking habits were the direct cause of his hypoglycemia, but heavy drinking is linked with the disease, and it certainly wasn't helping matters. You see, shortly before his leave of absence, Toco TV did a mini documentary about Swery, and that documentary came with a warning about drinking responsibly. Damn dude, this whole video is mostly about Swery chilling at bars and hashtag drinking. I fucking love this guy so much, and it was difficult for me to watch him crawl from bar to bar in this. It looked like he was mostly having a good time with friends. It kind of painted a broader picture to what was going on psychologically during this part of his life. Over the past year, I've been following Swery on various social media, and from what I've gathered, it seems like in his absence he encountered some resentment and pushback from colleagues due to him taking some time off for his health. Now, I'm extrapolating this information based on some tweets he made about his absence, which very well may be my very own inaccurate interpretation of his thoughts and feelings, mind you, that were translated from Japanese to English. So please take these with a huge grain of salt. Anyways, the last real concrete information we had about D4 Season 2 came from an interview with Gamasutra in May of 2015. This interview took place near the launch of the PC version and a few months before Swery's hiatus, in which he released this screenshot from an alleged build of Season 2 Episode 1, and then the game was never heard from again. As fans of this game, what can we possibly do here? Is there anything we can do at this point? For one, I suggest you don't harass Swery about it on Twitter, as I'm sure that there's nobody else in this world who wants Season 2 to happen more than him, and I'm sure he's doing everything in his power to make it happen. He's honestly the nicest developer out there, and I'm sure he feels our pain here, so cut him some slack. I truly love this guy, and I'm gonna follow him anywhere he goes for the rest rest of his gaming development career. And you should too. As far as I can surmise, there are two things you can do here. It seems like money and hashtag campaigns speak the loudest in these situations. I mean, it somehow worked for Shenmue 3, so never say never. At the end of it all, Microsoft holds the most cards when it comes to D4's fate. They funded and owned the game, so tweeting your love for the game and purchasing the game would be our best bet. It's been 2 years since its release, and with how quickly new games are being produced nowadays, D4 might get lost in the ether of time if we don't act now. As unoriginal as it may be, a hashtag campaign may be what it takes to revive this franchise. I'm just gonna throw a few out there. Hashtag WhoIsD. Hashtag we want the D. Or hashtag my desired number of Ds at one time is 4. At the end of it all, I want you to know I mean no ill will towards anyone in this video, and I do want to see a future for this series. Microsoft used to have such a solid reputation for bringing out great Japanese games on their respective platforms, and it's a damn shame to see this rising sun set on the Xbox One. I want to thank you for watching, and if you don't want this dark dream to die, then please share this video, tweet out to any Microsoft representative you know, and do yourself a favor and play through D4 if you haven't, because it's such a great game, although an unfinished one. Let's change that together.